Howdy Beans, sometimes this podcast contains adult content, like the odd and maybe a few, so viewer discretion is advised, but I always say, enjoy the show nonetheless. Howdy Beans, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Howdy Beans podcast. I'm your host, Luke the Elder Bean. Hope you're doing well, hope you're all good, as per usual. Today we're going to be looking at the 2005 R-rated smash hit comedy, and one of my all-time favourite comedies of all time, Wedding Crashers. I love this movie. But before we get into all of that and more, I want to do a bit of housekeeping, because I like to keep my house nice and clean. So make sure that you follow me on Twitter at howdybeans_pod. If you listen to this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify, don't forget to follow the podcast and leave a 5-star rating. You can also find the podcast on on TikTok, and you can also now find me on Instagram. So, as mentioned, we're going to be looking at Wedding Crashers today. This is also my first adult review of the year. As you heard at the very beginning of this episode, the adult language warning. So you have been warned. So if I do say fuck and shit and piss and all that jazz, you've been warned. So you can't moan at me. And I'm saying this mostly for my sister when my nephew listens. If he listens to this and you'd moan at me for swearing, I did put a warning at the beginning. But either way, I want to do more of these sort of reviews. As I mentioned in my sort of wrap-up review at the beginning of this year, I want to do a lot more of them because I love comedy. Comedy is, well, who doesn't love comedy? But there's a lot of movies out there that I want to look into, and there's no way you can properly talk about them without being able to let loose a bit and to say swear words. And this is one of them, Wedding Crashers. As I said, it's an R-rated movie, so how else can you talk about it without, being a bit vulgar? So you've been warned. But the reason why I chose this movie is it is now February. It is the month of love. Even though only one day out of this month really is, the day of love, Valentine's Day, which is next week. But I wanted to, it was kind of a difficult one because originally I'd planned to do Wedding Crashers for Valentine's Day. And then I thought to myself, well, okay, so it's a brilliant sort of romance, sort of comedy sort of movie. It's like a rom-com. But, I want to do something a little bit different. And then I was doing a bit of research and I found a movie that I'm going to focus on for Valentine's Day next year. That's a movie that's underrated. No one really talks about it. It's absolutely brilliant, clever, smart. It's a romance, but it's got like a science sort of sci-fi sort of twist to it. So I thought, I'll do that one instead of Valentine's Day. So I was like, but I want to do Wedding Crashers. So I thought I'll do Wedding Crashers at the beginning of the month. And that's why we've got Wedding Crashers today. I've got a lot of fun memories of this movie. As I said, it is one of my all-time favourite comedies. I watched it recently because sadly it's leaving Netflix at the end of January, but I'm obviously recording this in January so I can watch it and review it before that. But it's just one of them movies. It's so smart. It's so clever. Owen Wilson, wow, that guy, and Vince Vaughn. It's just one of those. Like, on their own, they're incredible. They're amazing. Like any movie that either one of them in is brilliant, and especially like Vince Vaughn in the early days of Vince Vaughn, in the early days of his career, how he's so quick, he's so witty, he's just so like quick out the gate with the quips and the confidence and the charisma, and I love the early days of Vince Vaughn. He doesn't do it so much now, but his early days when he was like doing the movies that he was doing, and this being one of them, how he's just so good, and when he just goes off on his rambles and he just starts talking, you just sucked in of, oh my god, this guy, he's a brilliant, he's a powerhouse, he's so funny and so talented, I'm glad he's still around doing things. And the same with Owen Wilson, same thing, he's charisma, he's funny, he's charming, he's funny, so when you put these two together, and no one knew what sort of brilliantness we would get. But then when this movie come out and everybody was like, oh my God, this movie's incredible. And I shouldn't have watched this movie when I was younger. It's an R-rated comedy. There's a lot of boobies in it and there's a lot of swears and a lot of things in it that is quite naughty. But I remember watching it, and even though not like watching sort of American Pie, watching it, not fully understanding it, but still kind of getting the humor, still kind of laughing to people just doing silly things, that sort of thing. So and then watching it recently and just finding like it's still funny, it's still hilarious. This movie's like 2 hours long, but it goes by so quickly. And I love it, and the premise is incredible. And I've been waiting for years. They've been teasing for years that they're going to do a sequel, that they're planning on doing a sequel. And every time the year comes, oh no, we have to push it back, and we don't do it. So there is a potential idea, concept, script out there for like a sequel to this movie, where you've got like Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson and their love interests go off and crash weddings and that sort of thing. I don't know how it would work or how they would do it, but tell you the truth, if they managed to do it and it released this year, would I be one of the first people in the cinema to watch it? Absolutely, because I just believe in this duo that they can do great. Like they did a movie a couple of years ago called The Internship, which is basically where they become like they're in like their 30s, 40s, and they become interns at Google, and they're surrounded by a lot of young people. It's another movie that not many people have watched, and it's not a brilliant film. It's not as good as Wedding Crashers, but their dynamic is still that good and stat sharp that even though the movie isn't brilliant, it's still a pretty good, fun movie. And so whenever they're together in a film, like you've just got to watch it because it's just chemistry. It's just pure chemistry. So yeah, I've got a lot of fond memories about this film, and it was a no-brainer why I wanted to look into it for sort of this year and for Valentine's Day, because it's a comedy, it's R-rated, so it adds into me being able to do more sort of adult movies, but also it fits perfectly as sort of like a rom-com. So yeah, that's why I'm talking about Wedding Crashers today. As for the synopsis, for any of you mad people that haven't seen this movie before, this is the synopsis. So, Jeremy and John are divorce mediators who spend their free time crashing wedding receptions. For the irrepressible duo, there are few better ways to drink for free and bed vulnerable women. So when Secretary of the Treasury, William Cleary, who's played by Christopher Walken, announces the wedding of his daughter, the pair make it their mission to crash the high-profile event, but their game hits a bump in the road when John locks eyes with bridesmaid Claire. So that is a synopsis for the movie. As for the absolute brilliant, stunning cast, so we have Owen Wilson, wow, that guy, as John. You've got Vince Vaughn as Jeremy. You've got Rachel McAdams as Claire. Christopher Walken. I can't do a Christopher Walken impression. I have tried many times, but it's just embarrassing. Sometimes, it's terrible. I have tried so many times, and before I started recording, I'm sitting there trying to do my Christopher Walken impression. I just can't do it. I used to be able to when I was younger, but my voice has matured, and I just can't do it anymore, sadly. But anyway, Christopher Walken as Secretary Cleary, Issa Fisher as Gloria, and Jane Seymour as Kathleen, Ellen Dow as Grandma Mary, and then we have Bradley Cooper as Sack. So that is your main cast. As for the production, so this is one of the movies where you think, oh God, there's not going to be a lot on this movie. Oh, there is. In terms of production, there is a shed tone. So, as for production, it goes as follows. So, Andrew Panay, co-producer of Wedding Crashers, had the idea for the film based on his own experiences of being excited to attend weddings in his 20s due to the prospect of meeting women. Panay then consulted the screenwriting team of Steve Fabia and Bob Fisher to come up with a story based on this premise. Much of the film was based upon Fisher's experiences as a college intern in Washington, D.C., where he would make up fake backstories to crash lobbyist events for the free food. Panay and Fisher's experiences merged together to form the idea of a film in which the main characters crash weddings to meet and sleep with women. The screenwriters had doubts that the premise could be sustained into a feature-length film, so they decided to add female love interest born from a political family inspired by their dream of marrying a girl from the Kennedy family when they were young boys. It was also Panay's desire to explore male friendship through this crazy idea of crashing weddings as the emotional core of the movie. In preparation for the film, the creators would crash political party platform committee meetings in order to delve into the psyche of the characters and what it meant to crash a party. On April the 6th, 2003, Variety reported that both Fabia and Fisher had struck a mid-six figures deal with New Line Cinema to acquire the pitch for the film. David Dobkin signed to direct in 2004, seeing it as an opportunity to pair Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson, who had previously worked with Dobkin and gave him an Abbott and Costello impression when they were at the premiere of his film Shanghai Nights. According to Dobkin, the marketing department at New Line Cinema raised some concerns regarding the protagonists of the film, who were seen as misogynists whose goal is to seduce women at weddings and have sex with them. Dobkin saw these characters in a different light, however, convincing the department that, he says, and I quote, they love weddings authentically. They like the free food, they like the music and the bands, they like the dancing and the kids, they like talking to the grandparents. These guys make the weddings better. You would want them to crash your wedding, which again I completely agree. Like, if anything, bedding the women and having sex with all these ladies is kind of like a bonus to them. When you actually watch the beginning of the movie and it shows you like a montage of them being like different weddings, they become like the best men. They improve the wedding. The wedding will be fun, but they're dancing. You know, they're at a Jewish wedding and they go Nekia Haba, Nekia Ha. When they lift the guy on the chair, they're at the front of it, bouncing the guy up down on the chair. You know, they're there cutting the cake and they're smushing cake in each other's faces. And you'd sit there and think, okay, who are these guys? But they're so sort of enveloped into the sort of party that they just make it better. You don't care that you don't know them. You just like, okay, this wedding's got 10 times better because they're there. They're doing stuff with the kids. They're dancing with family members or with grandparents. Like, they're just making a wedding that's, you know, really a big day of celebration, just more memorable, you know. So, and it's just a bonus that, yeah, you know, they're sleeping with the bridesmaids as well, but at the same stage, it's like, well, okay, you know, but they've made the wedding better. So, yeah, you would want them at your wedding. And I've heard many stories that when this movie came out, that wedding crashing became a thing, that a lot of people just started doing it, started finding when weddings are and going to crash weddings. I don't know if they were successful or not, but apparently it became a thing. Wedding crashing became a thing, and it became. I remember watching movies long after this film was made, and they would quote, "Oh, let's go wedding crash, let's go crash wedding." So I don't know if it was a thing before the movie, but it definitely became a thing when the movie came out, which again I think is absolutely brilliant. Anyway, he goes on to say, that's a distinction. It's not misogynistic, and in fact, what it's doing is replicating a real seduction, which is, I want to go to bed with you, but I have all these walls up. Can you make me laugh? Can you make me attracted to you and find a way to make this really fun so we could get to the good part? That's a seduction. So if I can seduce the audience, if I can make them laugh and be entertained and think these are okay guys, by the time they're dropping the girls in the bed, it's a magic trick. That was the whole idea. Which again, I completely agree. It is a complete magic trick. Vaughn and Wilson were the first actors cast in the film. Dobkin cast Bradley Cooper without even watching his audition tape, as he was so impressed by Cooper's test reading. Isa Fisher, then a relatively unknown actress in the United States, but who had a significant profile in the United Kingdom and Australia on account of her work in the soap opera Home and Away, was cast as Gloria over Shannon Elizabeth and Anna Panera, whatever. The casting of Secretary clearly was a contentious issue between Dobkin and the studio executives. Dobkin wanted to cast Christopher Walken, but New Line Cinema wanted a more comedic actor, such as Burt Reynolds, instead of Walken, who was viewed more as a serious character actor. Nicolas Cage was also considered for the role of Chaz Reinhold before Will Ferrell was cast. Oh my God. Like, so the whole character of Chaz Reinhold, like, you have like the whole lore of this movie. So as the movie goes on, there's this whole lore about who Chaz is, and that he's like a god, that he's just brilliant. And then you finally get to meet him, and he's just Will Ferrell. And that on its own is masterclass and brilliant, and one of the most hilarious parts of the film. But just imagine if it was Nicolas Cage, that you would believe it, just like as you would kind of believe it with Will Ferrell. You'd look at it and go, yeah, no, I could imagine this guy being a sex god, Nicolas Cage. He would be able to bed men and women. You know what I mean? Like, it's still funny that it's Will Ferrell, but Nicolas Cage, that would have been hilarious as well. And I wouldn't have seen it coming either. But both would have been brilliant. Anyway, the role of Claire was the first role to be cast, with Dobkin auditioning over 200 actresses before casting Rachel McAdams. Dobkin originally considered the possibility of releasing a version of the film that was not R-rated to broaden the film's commercial appeal, but the idea was abandoned after a consultant provided a long list of the many R-rated elements in the film, and Dobkin realised the two funniest scenes in the movie would have to go. Despite this, New Line Cinema still did not want the film to be rated R, but eventually conceded to keep the R rating after pressure from Dobkin. Dobkin had said that the script originally set the film around Cape Cod, but a need to film in spring made this impractical. He suggested moving the shoot to Washington, D.C., his hometown, feeling that his knowledge of the area would make choosing locations easier and that using the city as the setting for a comedy would be an unexpected choice. So that is all you've got for production. Before I get to one extra thing, I just want to say, this movie, so the film opened like in July the 15th, 2005, and became a critical and commercial success, grossing $288.5 million worldwide on a $14 million budget. It became the sixth highest grossing film of 2005 in the United States and became the first R-rated comedy to make $200 million at the domestic box office. The success of the film has been credited with helping to revive the popularity of adult-oriented R-rated productions. So I just wanted to add that little bit in there. As for filming, so Dobkin insisted on 3.5 weeks of rehearsals before filming began. Based on his background working in theatre, principal photography began on March the 22nd, 2004 in Washington, D.C. The film had a 52-day shooting schedule. The main Cleary wedding reception scene was filmed at the Inn at Perry Cabin in St. Michael's, Maryland. The Ellenborough Estate in Eastern Maryland is the setting of the Cleary family home, where a majority of the movie takes place. Director David Dobkin said Owen Wilson was nervous about the scene where Wilson grabs Jane Seymour's breasts. Brilliant scene, by the way. He didn't really want to squeeze her breasts. When she was telling him to. And I was like, dude, you got to do it. It doesn't look right. Your hands look like crab claws. And then he did it eventually. And that scene ended up being way funnier than I thought it was going to be, Dobkin said. The family dinner scene has been cited by Kerr O'Donnell as the most grueling scene to film, with Vaughan stating that the cast and crew were unsure if the scene would work on screen in the way in which it was intended. To shoot the scene in which the family plays football, Dobkin, an avid fan of the NFL, shot the scene in the manner in which a television crew broadcasts an NFL game in order to make the scene seem authentic and familiar to the audience. Throughout the film, the producers encouraged improvisation from the cast, specifically from Wilson and Vaughan, leaving breaks in the script for the cast to improvise. In one scene, Vaughan improvises for over 25 seconds straight. I'm not sure what that one is, but I am sure I can probably imagine what scene that one is. I'm sure that's a scene where the girl's going to put, when he's at work at the beginning of the movie, and she says, "Oh, I'm going to get you a date," and he goes, "Well, I don't know if I'm interested, because am I interested? Am I not interested? You know, does she like me? Then I'm me, and then am I interested? But then she says I'm not interested, but now I'm interested. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's potentially one of them, or maybe that's the scene. I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me at all, because when you watch it, you go, that line doesn't feel like it's in the script. That just feels like it's just Vince Vaughn riffing. But I love when there's improvisation in movies, especially in comedies, because you can tell when something's authentic script and when something's like off script, you know, something's improvised. If the comedian does it right, you can just tell. And those parts don't always, but those parts usually improve a movie. It's like adding more to a stew. It's like a stew's incredible as it is, but if you just add a few more things here and there, it can improve it, or it can ruin it. It depends, really. But that's all I've got really on the production. As I said, I absolutely love and adore this movie, so I'm incredibly excited to get round to watching it again, and just having a laugh, because it's a brilliant movie, and it's one of those that you just don't see many people talk about anymore. Like everybody knows how good it is, but it's one of them films that just doesn't get talked about. And again, that's the whole point of what I do here at the podcast, is I get movies that people don't talk about, that no one's looking into, and really sort of shine a light on them to give them sort of the love that that they deserve. So I'm going to off now and watch Wedding Crashers, and when I come back, give you my first impressions, talk about the story, and then we'll sort of wrap up overall thoughts, and then a bit of trivia at the end if I can find some. So I recommend going off and watching this now, if you can. And then when we come back, we will talk about this wonderful, incredible R-rated movie. So I'll see you all in a minute. And welcome back, everybody. So I hope you all went off and watched Wedding Crashers like I did. Because honestly, this movie is fucking awesome. It's brilliant. It's hilarious. Now, granted, this is the second time I've seen it, this month in January. But it's still good. It's still funny. It's still hilarious. It's still as great as the last time I watched it. And it's as great as when I first watched it, back when I was like too young to really have watched a movie like this. But even so, it was brilliant then. It's still brilliant now. It is still one of my all-time favorite comedies. And to be honest, for two main reasons. And funny enough, it isn't the pairing of Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn, even though, I wax lyrically of how brilliant they are in the introduction, and they are a perfect duo, and they do a fantastic job here together. To me, honestly, the two standouts are Isa Fisher and Vince Vaughn together, playing Jeremy and Gloria. Whenever they're on screen together, it is brilliant. Because you have Isa Fisher, Gloria, basically playing a very sort of naive, sort of innocent princess to like a very rich sort of powerful father, and she pretends to like be like a virgin, and she's like she's telling Jeremy that she loves him and all that, and Jeremy's like, oh, like we got a stage 1 clinger right here, we got to go, and like she's walked in all horny and doing all sort of like kinky shit to him and stuff like that, and he's loving it, like he's in cloud 9, like he's like, this is heaven. But at the same stage, this woman's like a freak, like she's insane. She's like, Jeremy, I love you, never leave me. And he's like, oh, I won't. And she goes, because I'll find you, very sort of creepy like that, and like that. And he's just sitting there like, oh my god. And but whenever they're on screen, they're brilliant. But also I found a bit of a weird sort of connection, because near to the beginning of the movie, Jeremy's assistant comes into it and says, oh, you're really, really sweet. I've got a friend who would really get on with you. And like Jeremy, like Vince Vaughn, he's like, I appreciate it. Like, I appreciate saying it. But then he goes on like a full, like 25-minute just like improv where he goes like, I don't want to go through that whole talking stage of being interested. Am I not interested? But now she's not interested. So now I'm interested. He goes through all that. And the whole speech that he gives is actually funny. If it comes back around, and that speech actually happens again when he meets Gloria. Well, like at first he's not interested. Like she's really, really and keen and interested in him, and he's not that interested, sort of thing. And even though she's everything that he wants, so she's a very sort of like sexual, sort of incredible, weird, wonderful sort of person. And again, Jeremy is a very weird sort of person as well. Very strange. I think he's just kind of like, oh my god, she's a clinger, she's insane. But then when he realizes that it's all an act, and she only is saying that she loves him and that, I'll find you, right, is because that's what she feels like men want to hear and want to do, and men want somebody who, is like really sexual and crazy like that. Once he realizes that, when she tells him, he's like, oh my god, I love this woman. This woman's insane. I love her. And then he realized, oh, I'm a bit weird. I had a sort of childhood friend growing up, and his name was Shiloh, and we always play checkers, and he always let me win and stuff like that. And so they're like the perfect couple. It was like they're like two weirds, but make it normal, even though they're not normal. If that makes sense, I don't know. It's like the fact of like they're just two people who are very strange, very weird, who just work perfectly together. Like they don't seem like it, but they just work. So Jeremy and Gloria and like Vince Vaughn, Isa Fisher, they just take the performance. The whole movie is when they're on screen together, it's just great. But yeah, I do. I really, really love this movie. Like I said, first impressions, as I said, was going to be incredibly positive because it is a really brilliant movie. It's a fantastic comedy. It's a comedy, and again, I hate to use these words because I feel like they're overly used. But it's a comedy that you just don't see anymore. During the two, I think I've mentioned this before on the podcast. I think I'm sure I mentioned it last year. They don't really make comedies like this anymore. Like during like the 2000s, it was of the time, like especially like the 90s, early 2000s. It was the time of fuck around and find out. Basically, it was the fact of, well, we'll just give it a go. We'll just tell any sort of story. It doesn't really matter. Like, we'll do any sort of comedy. We'll say whatever we want. It's a comedy. People know what a comedy is, sort of thing. So there was no fear of can't say this, can't say that, can't do this, can't do that. Just the fact of fuck it. It's funny. We'll do it. And like a movie like this, where you've got a very smart and clever premise and well-written characters, brilliant casting of the whole cast. Everybody in the cast is brilliantly well cast. That you have the comedy, the humor, the acting, the improvisation, the premise. It all comes together to a movie that just works. It just does. Like, I couldn't see this movie as a sort of PG-13. It could work. I get it. You know, I can somewhat see parts where it would work. But what makes this movie good is because it's an R-rated. There's no holds bar. They can just do whatever they want. And again, it works with the improv and the comedy and that sort of thing. And I love it. And as I said, Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn together, they work. It just works. It just clicks. You know, it's like trying to pair cheese and crackers. You know, one's really like savory, full of flavor, and one's really plain. But you put them together, and you've got one of the best sort of starters ever. You know, a cheese and a cracker. And depends on if you get the right cracker and the right cheese. Brilliant. You know, I don't know if that's a good comparison, but you get what I'm trying to make. You know, you've got something that's shouldn't work, but when it comes together, it just works, and you're like, oh my god, how have I never tried this before? So yeah, that like is brilliant. So, and like I said, the premise when you know watching the whole idea of wedding crashing. Again with me, I've like one thing that Jeremy and John do in this movie, which again I think is brilliant, and why I love the premise of this film, is the fact of you have the idea of wedding crashing, right? And the whole idea of wedding crashing is the fact of you know you go to a wedding and you make it better, really. And that's what they do. They make the weddings better. They make below average sort of boring weddings better. You know, this idea of when you watch this movie, you sit there and you go, yeah, I'd love somebody like that at my wedding. Somebody who hypes it up, somebody who gets everybody up, gets everybody dancing, makes the jokes, does the funny remarks, you know, does the speeches, gets involved, that sort of thing. Because as Jeremy says, like, look, you know, you want to make yourself sort of known, but you don't want to draw negative attention to you. So yeah, by all means, be loud, be crazy, like draw attention to yourself, but in a positive way, so that you know you're having a laugh, you're eating the food, you're having a drink, you're being part of the celebration. So no one's questioning, is he meant to be here? Who's that guy? You know, sort of thing. It's the fact of, oh, that's Uncle Sid's, Larry's cousin's brother's child. You know, oh yeah, I know him. You don't know him, but it doesn't matter because you're having a good time. You know, and John realised this near to the end of the movie when like he's trying to crash weddings on his own, and he's being all negative and he's drawing attention to himself, and he's getting beaten up, he's getting hit, he's getting kicked out, it's not going well, he's getting depressed, and it's that idea of it. It's like I said, it's a magic trick. They're confidence men. That's what they do. It's like they're doing a magic trick where they're performing like a confidence, where they're very charismatic, very charming, full of confidence. Which again, that's what women love. They love confidence. They love somebody who's very open and out there, and somebody who is it doesn't have like stand with their back at the wall. Somebody who's like involved in everything. And that's what they're doing. Really, they're coming in, making parties better, eating the food. They enjoy the weddings. They enjoy the celebrations. Again, they've been to enough weddings where they know what's going to happen. Like when they finally get to the secretary's wedding, when they first arrive, they're placing bets on like what kind of speech the bridesmaid's going to make, and so on and so forth. And they just know, because they've been so many of them, that they've been to loads of them, but they also really enjoy weddings as well. They enjoy the celebration, the party, the food and the music and all that jazz. And like it makes somebody like me, who is not very confident, I'll be completely honest, I'm not very confident with women. I've tried my hardest, but I'm just not that good. And like it could be the autism or what. But I don't really get up and dance much. But at the same stage here in the UK, weddings in the UK, I've been to a few, not many. But in the UK, we don't do proper sort of like we see like American like movies and weddings. They're all getting up and they're all dancing. They're all doing the proper dancing. Where like you say, do you want to dance? And you get close and you do like the waltz and that sort of thing. We don't really do that here in the UK. Like we have the first dance and that's about it. Otherwise, it's just standard sort of party sort of music. The only actually song I can do dance to is the Candy song. It's like Candy, that song. You know, the only reason I know how to do it is because we have to do it at work for the people. But one of my colleagues who can dance taught me how to do the dance, and it's the only dance I can dance to. And admittedly, since then, if I'm at a party or wedding and that song comes up, I will get up on the dance floor and dance. Even if I'm the only one up there who knows what they're doing, I'll get up there and dance because it's a song I can do. So that confidence and sort of charm and charisma is inside me. It's just the fact of I'm just awkward, But watching these guys do what they do, watch them perform their trick, it's one of those where I personally, I sit there and go, I think I could do that. Not wedding crash, but I could get up and be confident. If I went to a wedding and you had people like this, Jeremy and John, if you had, say for example, they existed and they were at a wedding and they got up and they were doing this, I'd be like, you know what? I want to join in on that because that looks a lot of fun, and it gives well, me personally the confidence to be like, look, yeah, when you're at a party, don't sit with your back to the wall. Get up and dance. Obviously, in me personally, I wouldn't be doing it to sort of get and sleep with women, but kind of to be more involved in it, to make a party that's just a standard party, but to make it more fun, to more memorable. Because that's what they're doing. They're pulling a trick to make a party or wedding that's going to be very mediocre, sort of average, into a better wedding. So that when they look at their wedding photos down the line, it's like, you know what? I don't remember that bloke, but I remember that we had a brilliant time. I remember it was fantastic. And I love the movie. I love the idea and concept of that. And like I said, it started when this movie came out, it made people go out and wedding crash, and it was a real thing. And I don't know if people still do it now, but it's still referenced in movies. I've watched, I can't count many times I've seen movies where they're like, oh, let's wedding crash. They're like, oh no, let's not do it. No, come on, let's go crash a wedding. So it's a thing. It's definitely in the zeitgeist. It's definitely become a thing now. And it just goes to show how brilliant the movie is. And again, it deals with love. It deals with the idea and concept of the whole idea of being yourself, being genuine, being you, really, but also the idea of love and what is really love. And like I said, with like Jeremy and Gloria, two people that you wouldn't think would really work. Jeremy doesn't want a relationship. All he wants to do is have fun, sleep around, crash weddings. Like, he enjoys the wedding part of it and the parties, but he just wants to sleep around. He's not really interested, or, like, you can obviously tell there's a lot of things there that he's not dealing with as to why he can't commit. Then you got John, who, again, same sort of thing, but as you can see, when he's bedding the women, you have this whole montage where the women are falling on the bed, boobies going everywhere. Where he's in bed with one girl and he gets a name wrong, and you can tell like he's kind of sitting there and he's having that moment of realization in his head of like, I'm loving this, I'm enjoying it, it's fantastic, like I'm living every man's dream. But at the same stage, you can kind of look on his facial expressions and it kind of answers the question as well as the movie goes on, that he's thinking to himself, do I want to keep doing this? It's just something that I keep wanting to do. I've been doing it for years now. Is it something that he wants to carry on? And you can see that he wants to find love. And it's not until like he meets Claire, Rachel McAdams' character, that it's kind of the fact of, oh, yeah, actually, I can find somebody that I want to be with. I can find love. It's not until obviously things go wrong there when he goes very sour and negative, and he's like, oh, screw weddings, fuck weddings, I'm not interested, and things start going wrong from when he meets Chaz. But I've already gone into the whole story part of it. But yeah, it's just first impressions, as you can tell, very positive, very brilliant movie. I love it, and it makes sense to me and hopefully to you guys why this is one of my favorite comedies of all time. It's just because of the idea and the premise. It's so clever, so witty, so smart, and so well done that like it's 2 hours long, but it just flies by. It's not a movie that drags. It's like, I love it from start to finish. As for the story, as like I've already really mentioned, to be honest, just to go over it again, you have John and Jeremy, they're wedding crashers. Jeremy learned all this from Chaz, and they talk about this guy like he's the oracle, like he is the bee's knees, like he is, the sort of alpha and omega, like the most peak of male performance, what I mean? They make himself like a god, like a proper sex god, and so Jeremy sort of got his protege, which is John, his friend, and drags him along to doing weddings. And they've got protocol is like, protocol number 238, you never leave another crasher behind. Number protocol 25, make sure that you've got an up-to-date family sort of things. And they've got they have different rules that they live by. And it's kind of like a code of like, okay, if you follow these rules, and they sound crazy, to be honest, these rules, whenever you hear them and like you see what they're doing, it's like, God, you had to be like, it's real crazy, these ideas and these things that they're coming up with. It's like, they just seem really insane, these different rules. But it's not until you meet Chaz and you realize, oh, actually, yeah, no, it makes sense. But trust me, we will get there when we get there, because I have a lot to say about the Chaz character. So anyway, so the movie basically starts where they're going to loads of different weddings, and like I said, they're making them better. They're going to all different types of weddings, and you can kind of see how you can have a peek behind the curtain. You can see how the magic sauce is made. The thing you can see them, but they go in and they're like, okay, and they're having funny. And at first, because when I had to explain it, at first when you get the montage, I'm going to do when you see the magic trick, right? You see them performing an act, and they're dancing, they're doing balloon animals, or Jeremy's doing magic, that sort of thing, and they're talking to women, and they say, like, for example, they're talking about something, and John will be like, "Oh, it's really sad. We lost a good man out there." And before again, the woman could ask any questions, he goes, "Oh no," and they feign sort of sadness, and he goes, "Oh no, I can't talk about it." And you can see the trick, and you kind of get like, oh yeah, they're subverting the idea, because again, if they leave it open, they're going to ask questions that they don't have answers to, and they're going to show that they're basically frauds. So they have ways of dealing with things. So you watch the trick played out, and you see them bed all these women, and you have the bit of nudity, the boobs, and all that jazz. But you can also see them partying and making a party really better. They got champagne going everywhere. They're feeding each other cake. They're feeding the bride and the groom cake. Like I said, the magic trick, you see it, brilliant. Then you go to the next wedding, which is where you've got the Secretary of State, who is like Chris Walken, but you've got like his daughter's wedding, and you can see how it all works. They're looking out, they're scoping, they're picking, they're choosing their women, and then they're doing things like, "I'm going to go. What's your play?" And the guy's like, "Oh, I'm going to go dance with one of the little girls over there. I'm going to go dance with Nan," or something like that. And then what's your plan? He goes, "Oh, I'm going to do some balloon animals with the kids," these sort of things. And you can and they're showing you a peek behind the curtain of how it all works, how it's all staged, how it's all planned. And like the talking points. So like you can see that when they get to a wedding, they do their research. So they research who the family is. Are they Christian? Are they Jewish? What religion they are? Like what names they should have, what's their backstory, who are they, what characters they're playing. And it's this idea you can tell that just in case one of them was to ever have an issue and kind of needs to fall back on something, they can fall back on either John or Jeremy can fall back on John or whatever. So they've always got each other's back. So no matter what, as long as they stick to the protocol, stick to the rules, stick to their cover stories, and sort of be there with each other, like and stick to their plans, 9 times out of 10, it will always work out, and they'll always bed the most beautiful girl, and it'll be fantastic. And like I said, that's quite clever. You see that, but it's not until they get to the secretary's wedding where Jeremy finds Gloria, tries to weave her sweep. She plays all innocent and cute and all that jazz. And then she tells him, "Oh, I lost my virginity to you." And he's like, "Oh, shit." She's like a stage 1 cling. And he's like, "We got to get out of here." But John's fallen in love with Rachel McAdams' character, Claire, which again, I don't blame him. It's Rachel McAdams. I would fall in love with her too. And actually, funny enough, I think this is the second movie review that I've done with Rachel McAdams in. The first one I did actually last Valentine's Day, funny enough, was for About Time, which is another brilliant movie you haven't seen. Go check it out and go listen to my review of it. But yeah, I don't blame Owen Wilson, John, for falling in love with Rachel McAdams. Who wouldn't? The same with Issa Fisher as well. I'd fall in love with her at a wedding. And then like John's fallen in love with Claire. Like he's got feelings for her, so he wants more time to kind of seal the deal. Jeremy's like, "No, like this bitch is crazy." You know what I mean? She's a stage 1 clean. We've got to go. And she's like, "Oh, Jeremy, please, can you come? To my dad's sort of family sort of cabin. We're all going back there. After the wedding, it's going to be wonderful and great." And like Jeremy's like, "No, we've got to go." And John, obviously, he wants to stay because he wants to spend time with Claire. He's like, "Yeah, come on, Jeremy, let's do it." And then sort of Glory goes off to her dad's, Chris Walken, secretary, Cleary, and she's like, "Oh, daddy, please," and she's like picking up a fit, and he's like, "Look," he's saying to like John, just like Jeremy's like to John's like, she's nuts, she's crazy, she's like psycho, she can be wearing my skin by the end of the evening, sort of thing. But like John's like, "No, come on, let's please like, help me, seal the deal." So they go, and this is when things sort of get a bit complicated, because obviously Jeremy, and like I said, this is where like Jeremy and Gloria are brilliant. Jeremy and Gloria, she's like insane, but like she's really horny and naughty and sexual. Like everything is like sexual with him, everything. And he's just like, she's nuts, she's crazy. Like for example, they're playing rugby and all that. Jeremy gets injured, like absolutely beat to hell. He's upstairs big sort of cut gash on his leg, and sort of Gloria's looking after him. She's like, "Oh yeah, you poor baby, are you okay?" And Jeremy's like, "Oh no, yeah, it's all right. I'm a bit battered up and bruised, but I'm fine." And she's like, "Do you want me to blow on it?" And he's like, "No, no." And then she's like, "Do you want me to blow on it?" And then she like leans into obviously, give him a blowy, and he's like, "Oh, whoa, 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 stop, slow down. I've just been sort of manhandled outside, like, slow down." And like she's going all crazy, and she's like, "Oh yeah, my father was right about you men like you. You just want to be another notch on my belt, and all that." And then she's got like I would imagine like the alcoholic sort of like disinfectant. She's spraying it crazy on his leg, and he's freaking out. And then he realized that this woman's nuts, but you can also kind of tell that he kind of digs it as well. And there are other things that happen with them, which again I'm not going to get into, and I don't want to sort of tell the full story of this movie, because like there are parts that if you haven't seen it that are brilliant that you should experience for yourself. But what I do want to talk about, skipping on ahead really close after sort of near to the end of the movie, is this whole sort of chance sort of thing. So this whole Clarence thing. So Will Ferrell as this character is absolutely brilliant. Chaz, like I said, for the whole movie, they're talking about him like he is some sort of god, how he is the oracle, how he is like, the epitome of manhood sort of thing. Like he could do no wrong. He is just like the alpha and omega, right? And you are led to believe you as the viewer would be like, oh God, he's going to be some sort of legend. He must be, because it works. But at the same stage, like this whole wedding crashing thing is nuts. Like I'd love to meet the man who came up with this sort of method, because they must be some sort of mad, sort of handsome, gorgeous, brilliant genius. So then, sort of Owen Wilson's character, he's going through a bit of depression sort of stage because things didn't go well with Claire, and he's sort of fallen out of friendship with Jeremy. So he's like, you know what, I'm going to meet sort of Chaz, because he is the oracle. He's going to put me on the straight and narrow. So he gets there, knocks on the door, and a woman answers, old woman, and she goes, "Oh, is Chaz here?" And she's like, "Chaz, you got company." So Owen Wilson walks in. And the mom's like, "Oh, Chaz, clean up your fucking skateboard." And there's cartoons on, and this guy's like has a silhouette of him, and he comes down with like nunchucks around him, got a really sort of sour look on his face, right? And then just looks at John, and he's like, "What the fuck do you want?" Proper serious sort of face. And John's like, I'm John. I'm best friends with Jeremy. You remember Jeremy?" And all of a sudden he's like, "Oh no fucking way!" And like the guard comes down and all that. He's like, "Why didn't you say, brother? Come and give me a hug. I almost nunchucked you. How is the protege?" Obviously talking about Jeremy. And John's like, "Oh, he's all right. He's all right. He's getting married." And like, you got sort of Chaz is like, "Oh my God, what a fucking loser. What an idiot. God. Wow, not so bad, more for us," sort of thing, And the character of Chaz by Will Ferrell is perfect. It is. Because, like, as an introduction, they originally had a thought of having Nicolas Cage in this role, and I did have that in mind. So going into watching this movie again, I had that in mind of like, okay, when Chaz comes up, try to imagine that character as Nicolas Cage. And I think the reason why I love the idea of Nicolas Cage, but also why I feel like it wouldn't work, is the fact of, as I mentioned, when they talk about Chaz, they talk of him, he's like some sort of god, an alpha omega, some sort of mad genius, some sort of gorgeous, handsome man, right? A guy that could bed any woman, who has like all the charisma and all the charm, right? The problem is, even though I would have loved to see Nicolas Cage in that role, in my opinion, other people might disagree, but if that guy was to come downstairs and it'd be Nicolas Cage, I would instantly believe that guy, Nicolas Cage, would be able to bag any woman, and that he's mad and crazy enough to think of this idea and this whole idea of wedding crashing and all these protocols. I would 100% believe it. Now, there's a difference between believing and comedy, because it's more funnier to see Will Ferrell come down it, because you're like, no fucking way. I have no way do I believe that this guy that lives with his mom and watches cartoons and dresses in a kimono and has nunchucks and has a skateboard and rides a bike and all this jazz. There's no fucking way that I believe that this bloke is behind all of this. Whereas Nicolas Cage, I'd be like 100% believe it. It wouldn't even be funny. It like, I 100% believe that guy that Nicholas Cage looking motherfucker would do this. Like, and it wouldn't be as funny. It'd be interesting and it'd be a great cameo, but I wouldn't believe it. But when you see Will Ferrell, you're like, yeah, 100%. I don't believe it. And then he starts explaining it, and then he's like, and like John's like, well, how's the wedding game? He's like, wedding's all right, but like I've got this new thing that I'm doing. You're gonna love it. And like John's like, what? And he's like, oh no, sorry, I've skipped a bit. This girl comes down. She's absolutely gorgeous, like proper smoke show, right? And she's coming down, and like John's like can't believe it, And then you've got Chaz, like he's all chill. She's like, oh, yeah, I've got to go now. And then Chaz's like, yeah, baby, yeah, you do what you gotta do. See you later. And he gets up, gives her a kiss, song and all that. And she goes, and like John's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. You really are the man. And he's like, I'm just living the dream, man. Like, and you just be like, how the hell, as a guy like that, doing this, managed to do all this, and then you realize, oh God, he's somehow a mad genius. But also at the same stage, and there's a point I want to get to a bit later with this whole Chaz character. But like I said, at the same stage, you see him and like John's like, oh my God, he is the Oracle. Like I was a bit worried the fact of, you living with your mom and then, the cartoons and the meatloaf and all that. I wasn't sure, but like you really are as like a legend that Jeremy made out to do. And then he mentions, oh yeah, I met John's like, where'd you meet her? And he goes, oh, I met her at a funeral. Like John's face drops. He goes, a funeral? What? No, Chaz, I don't think that's right. I don't think I could do that. That's wrong. And he's like, no, you don't understand. Like, I'll throw a wedding in now and then. But funerals are where they're at. Funerals, like women are really horny. Like it's emotional shit or something like that. Real scum, disgusting kind of stuff, to be honest. But it's one of those things like, it really works. Trust me. And like John's like, I'm not sure, and like Chad's like, no, come with me, come, like you come on the next one. I've got another one booked on Saturday. You're coming, all that jazz. And like John's like, I'm not sure. He goes, and then you've got John there. He's got a woman sort of crying on his arm, and you look over and you can see like Will Ferrell, Chaz. He's like, damn you, Roger, damn you. He's like really hamming it up, really playing it up, and tears going. He's showing loads of attention to himself, and he's got a woman on him. He's like, oh, and then when he looks over to John, gives him a wink, and like obviously you can't see him because it's audio, but like he air humps. He's like, ugh, like got his tongue out, probably air humping. Kind of like yeah, we got it. He's like, oh damn you, Roger, damn you, and it's kind of funny because one again you're like, okay, that is a crazy psycho. Somehow that works. But at the same stage, it's like, no way you could believe that guy at a wedding would get any dates. You think he was a douche, but somehow it works, So you see the cleverness, but at the same stage, you kind of see the fact of how sort of John could actually end up like Chaz. Because he's on this downward spiral, and because of all the things that he's going through, and like he's lost Jeremy, he could easily end up, if he carried on, end up like Chaz. Well, he doesn't care. He's got no morals. And I would imagine Chaz has done this for so long where like doing a funeral is just like another day at the office is nothing. Every hole's a goal. That's how he sees it. And you can see John taking the same route. And I think the only reason why John and Jeremy, why they never went down that route, why they still had their morals, why it worked for them, and why you believe it works for them, not just because you've seen it, but you can believe it works for them compared to you can't really believe that this guy invented wedding crashing, is because John had Jeremy and Jeremy had John. So they had the two together. They kept each other above the float, because there are moments at the beginning of the movie when you see the whole montage of the weddings where they're off on their own, they're dancing, they're doing card tricks, things like that. They're talking to the girls, but then there's snippets of them two sitting at a table, no one around them, no women, nobody like around them, and they're sitting, they're talking, and they're eating cake, and then it will switch back, and like next thing you know, they're dancing, then it'll switch back to they're eating cake, or they're doing something together, they're having a laugh, having a joke. And it's that thing of like, you can generally see that these guys, they make it work because they generally enjoy what they do, i.e. they enjoy the wedding. If anything, picking up the girls is just like a bonus to them, And without so if like Jeremy was on his own, you could see that he could easily end up like Chaz, and it's the same with John. Did it on his own, he could end up like Chaz. But because of their friendship and because of them sticking together, even though they follow these rules of how to wedding crash, they still have each other. You know what I mean? And it's a very sort of lovely sort of dynamic that they have. And again, sort of Chaz being Chaz, he's a very sort of, yeah, he's one of the people like, yeah, I can see why they would idolize him, but at the same stage is the fact of he is a sort of disgusting, deplorable person. But Will Ferrell is a brilliant at, because you don't expect Will Ferrell to walk down them stairs. You don't expect a guy like Will Ferrell to do that. And again, that's why it works. If you ever see the movie The Other Guys, why it works when like you find out that he was gay and that he ran a prostitute ring while he was in college, and why he's just so good with all these hot women, all these women, and while Mark Wahlberg's character can't understand as to why these women would be attracted to a guy like him. And again, that's just why it works, because you just wouldn't imagine it. But that's just how brilliant that Will Ferrell is that he can just make you believe these things. But yeah, but overall, I think this is a brilliant movie, and because it's smart, it's clever. The idea of wedding crashing, this idea you get this common idea of you get these two men that crash weddings, and then you go from there, and it just works. And it's a brilliant film to watch at Valentine's Day, to watch during February. It is a romance, it is a rom-com technically. But it's a movie you can watch any time of the year. It's a film I love to put on every now and then because it still makes me laugh. One of my favorite moments is you've got Todd, who is the brother of Gloria and Claire, and he's a bit weird. He's a little different. He's gay, but like his family doesn't accept him because his family is very old-fashioned, sort of Southern sort of thing. He's very talented, very artsy, and there was a moment that I'm not going to sort of ruin because you haven't watched the movie, where he thinks that Jeremy was basically flirting with him and was trying to seduce him at the dinner table. So they end up in bed together. Todd is naked and he's trying to say that Jeremy is in the closet and gay and that sort of thing. And Jeremy's like, no, I'm not. But I'm not going to ruin that because, again, I don't want to spoil it. But it turns out that he painted a picture for Jeremy, and he looks like Adam from Adam and Eve. He's in the forest, and he's got like a flower covering his privates and that sort of thing. And there's a funny moment where like they get found out by the family, and like they're just talking about they're not who they say they are and all that. And then Todd goes up, Jeremy tried to seduce me, and then you've got John who looks at him and goes, "You did?" And like Todd's like, I want my painting back, and like Jeremy's like, no, Todd, that painting was a gift, and I'm going to take it. I don't know why. It just makes me howl every time. It's just funny because you just don't expect it. But it's a very funny, hilarious sort of film, and I love it. I really do. I just think it's fantastic, and I'm glad that I finally got to talk about it, because I just feel every time I watch it, I'm like, so smart. And it's a movie I recommend all the time to people. It's a movie that whenever people go, recommend me a comedy movie that, I'm not very. I'm in a bit of a low moment. I need a laugh. It's always Wedding Crashers. Always Wedding Crashers, because the dynamic duo between Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson. Wow, I can't help do that. The dynamic duo of them two. Then you have like the funny moments, like every character, even Bradley Cooper, which I haven't really spoke about. Bradley Cooper, he plays an absolute douchebag in this movie. Which he plays a douchebag brilliantly, by the way. Even Bradley Cooper is brilliant in this. One thing that does kind of confuse me, though, with this whole thing is the fact of when they go to the wedding, and you have Claire, but you have like a very moment between. It's all just like John and Claire, and you think that she's single because like no one. She's always on her own. She's talking to other friends or family members, I would imagine, but she's never with anybody. She's never talking. And then all of a sudden, after they do that and they get invited back to kind of stay at the summer house, then Zach, which is a silly name. But anyway, I'm not American. Anyway, it must be American. I don't know. I don't want to I don't know. It's a weird name. Anyway, Zach, he turns up and he's there and he's obviously in formal wear, obviously, because he's at the party. And I was thinking, where was he? But then I think to myself, hold on a second. He's a douchey bloke, to be honest. And more than likely, the reason he wasn't there is because he was probably off sleeping with the maid or something like that. You know what I mean? Very sort of Godfather, beginning of Godfather sort of thing, where he's in the storage cupboard sleeping with the maid, that sort of thing. That's probably why you don't see him, and then he just catches up with him at the end, potentially. I don't know. But yeah, the whole cast is just brilliantly done, and I really enjoy it. It just makes me laugh. It's a fun 2 hours that doesn't feel like 2 hours. It just flies by, and for that, it's just sort of fantastic. So yeah, my overall thoughts is if you haven't seen it, go watch it. I try my best not to ruin many things. I've left a lot of things still to be seen, but if you haven't seen it, definitely give it a go because it is just brilliant and definitely worth watching. Anyway, before we end things and before we wrap things up, I want to do a bit of trivia. So, when Christopher Walken and Rachel McAdams are dancing at the engagement party, Walken kept saying fart to keep McAdams smiling after dancing had become quite repetitive. Which sounds like a very Christopher Walken sort of thing. But by the way, Christopher Walken's brilliant in this movie. Like, he just makes it work. He's just like classic Walken all the way through, and I love it. And I really wish I could do a Christopher Walken impression, but I really, really can't. The painting given to Jeremy by Todd was kept by Vaughn after filming. That's brilliant. That is fantastic. I love that. I'd probably do the same. If I was in the movie, I would definitely do that as well. I'd be like, that painting, what's happening to it? Are you going to put it in storage? No, thank you. I'll have that, please. Because it's great. It's a gift, Todd. I'm going to keep it. Rachel McAdams got a certification in sailing to prepare for her role. She says she can now handle a 26-foot boat. Rachel McAdams listened repeatedly to Fleetwood Mac 1975 song Landslide to prepare for emotional scenes. Owen Wilson said the song made her cry immediately. It was like turning on a faucet. Owen Wilson came up with the line, "I think we only use 10% of our hearts." Also, what else? Following complaints from the United States Congress, the producers of the film yanked from the movie's official website a printable purple heart advertised as a gimmick to pick up women and get free drinks. Yeah, that was a bit of a scummy thing. I forgot. At the beginning of the movie, Jeremy basically gets some fake purple hearts. They don't have to they don't have to pay for any drinks, which is a very scummy thing to do. But obviously adds to them sort of, again, being very close to being like Chaz, but at the same stage, you never see them actually use it in the movie. You can imagine they probably did, but you know, you never see them use them, sort of thing. They just show up at the beginning of the film, and you never see them again. At the Italian wedding, the guy sitting next to Owen Wilson who laughed at the jabroni joke was Wilson's uncle. If Will Ferrell hadn't been available for the role, Derek had Nicolas Cage in mind for backup, as revealed in the Spitballing podcast. Bradley Cooper was hired as his audition. As director Dobkin recalls, my saying is that you never ever hire someone in the room. You always have to go back and watch the tape. Bradley Cooper is the only person who was an exception. I couldn't find anyone for that role, and then he came into the room and he was amazing. He was like a thoroughbred. I remember going up to him and saying, "Dude, you're awesome. You've got the part." And then Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn improvised the "lock it up" banter when they're on the stairs. He goes, "Lock it up, lock it up, lock it up," sort of thing, where it's like they're both sort of like Jeremy's starting to unfold. He's like dealing with Gloria, being very crazy, and sort of John's trying to seal the deal with Claire, and this friend of "lock it up," meant to be a team player, sort of thing. But yeah, that is the trivia, and that's everything really for the movie. I'm a bit tired, to be honest, because it's a long film, and then putting all my notes together, I'm a little bit tired, but I really hope that you enjoyed this review. I had a fantastic time with it, to be honest. I wouldn't say that it gave me the confidence to go out on Wedding Crash, to be honest, but what this film does do, and I feel like what it shows, is the fact of, despite everything that Jeremy and John do, and because the whole end goal is to sleep with women, you can tell, like I said, they love weddings, they love the parties, they love the food, they love the drinks, they love the whole sort of communal sort of thing behind it. But at most of it, really, and I'd say mostly more John than Jeremy. John, he really loves love. They really love the connection that weddings bring people. They might sit and go, "It's not for them," and they're just benefiting from a wedding. But you can tell that they really love weddings. They really love love. They really love the communion, which is a wonderful thing. So yeah, but that's, if you're going to take anything from this movie, take it the fact of, yeah, they crash weddings, but they really love what they do in terms of they love the weddings and they make the weddings better. And you watch it and you just think, yeah, I would love somebody or somebody's like that at my wedding because it would just make things better. And me personally, that's one thing I would love to do. I'm still single and have been for 9 years now. But I know in my heart is a heart that I would love to get married one day. And whenever I do get married, if anybody comes and crashes it, as long as they're fun and they make things fun and interesting, like Jeremy and John, I would have no issue with it. But yeah, why do I have a feeling that's going to bite me in the arse in a couple of years? If I ever get married and it's like that happens, I'm like, oh God, I shouldn't have said anything. Anyway, point is, I really love this movie. I really enjoyed it. And I've been talking for a long time now, so I'm going to stop. But hopefully you all enjoyed it. Hopefully you all liked it. If you did, then please do stick around. If you're listening on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, drop a comment. Let me know what you think of this movie. It's the same if you're listening on Spotify. You can leave comments down below now. Let me know what you thought of Wedding Crashers. Are you a fan or not? Follow the podcast on Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating. Follow me on Instagram. Follow me on TikTok at the Howdy Beans podcast. And all that jazz. Follow me on Twitter at the Howdy Beans _pod. And I will see you all in the next one. And I hope you all have a fantastic beginning to your February. And I'll see you all for Valentine's Day. Until then, bye bye.